What's up? This is the Becoming Podcast. I'm your host, Gore, and today we are talking to Stefanie Evie, who is specializing, actually multi-talented, but she specializes in something really unique that I thought would be really interesting to put out there for everybody, men and women, and that's couples events. We're gonna get really into like her whole experience around it because she's also using the field of dance to bring all of this together as well to help couples in many ways. So let's get right into it. Stephanie, it's awesome to have you. Let's
Having
start off
me.
on your end. Yeah, what's your
Nice to be
story,
here. Thanks
Stephanie?
for hosting me. It's a pleasure. I enjoy getting to be a part of helping expand knowledge with different people and being able to just share the experiences that we all have so that we can help each other grow.
Absolutely, I love that. That's what we're all about. I'm curious how you got into this space to begin with.
Good question. So I would say it all started out with my relationship with dance for sure. Like I've grown up as a dancer myself throughout my entire being. Like literally, I've been dancing since I was 5 years old. So growing up in the dance space just naturally got me into the performative space. And then I think over time, as I've evolved in my career and my craft of just doing events to working in spaces like dance studios, I ended up just kind of landing within a pocket not only in event spaces where I had the opportunity to create something different for the community and be able to do something that I felt like would hit a niche that I hadn't seen get hit enough in terms of entertainment. So that was kind of where that side of things got into why I started targeting couples for events. And then on the other side of it, it kind of like naturally married with the fact that I've also evolved in my dance career into like the Latin and ballroom space. I joke about this a lot, but I have a very strong understanding of over 25 styles of dance that I've taken like throughout my years. So I feel like I've aged like fine wine with my dancing because like where I'm at this point in my career is like the styles of dance that like live timelessly, and usually it does get shared within relationships and couples because it's a lot of partner work. So the two have just naturally married over the last few years just through the genuine natural evolution of my career.
I see. So you teach couples in terms of like for weddings and everything, like to you choreograph like dances themselves,
Yeah,
and
so
you.
I work at a dance studio called Blue Heel Dance Studio, and I work like technically with different types of individuals who are looking to evolve in Latin based dancing. So that could be like salsa, bachata, merengue, tango, like to ballroom side of things, which would be like your foxtrots, your rumba, sorry, I said tango, but uh, your waltz, any of that world essentially is like what I work on with them. And I, depending on the couple and what they want to evolve to, or even the individual, not always do I work with strictly a couple. It could be like an individual, whether it be a man or a woman who's looking to just strengthen their skill set in something new. And they also want to build up their confidence on the dance floor so that they can partner with people when they go out to events. So it just depends on the context.
I'm curious, do you work better with men or women?
I think I work really well with both, to be honest with you. I get really great, like, I think growing up and especially with the events that I've done, like, I work more heavily with women on a consistent basis because I just naturally have evolved in that space. There's no shying away from the reality that dance is predominantly run and operated by a lot of women. So women and me have always had a great relationship, but I'd say over the last like year, I've really tapped into my upping the ante with my relationships with men on the dance floor. I genuinely think I have a perfect balance with the both. I do think that comes naturally for me is knowing how to work with both parties. It's all around, to me, the theory of psychology and like personalities and learning how to deal with the individual, take out the gender. Of course, the gender plays an influence to a degree, so you have to be conscious of that when you're working with both parties.
Crazy because like dance is such a wonderful thing, and I'm so glad you got into it because it feeds so much of your femininity. It's like such a great tool to explore that to begin with. When I'm coaching clients, that's one of the things I'll recommend them to do in terms of like channeling their creative energy to feed their feminine side. Because having a balance of masculine and feminine is what an evolved person should have. And that's the biggest sign of like having emotional intelligence. So I find dance to be such a great channel, not only to explore your femininity, explore your creativity, but also to manage your state of mind, even throughout the day, or just having like twice a week classes. But even outside of that, just dancing on your own, just freeing your body up, opening up. It's such an amazing tool to have in your arsenal. And I love the way that you explored dance and then found a way to combine that and put that out into the world as part of this bigger mission.
It's been an interesting journey because, to give you a bit of context about myself, like I came from a degree in psychology first, and then I got a degree into event planning. And that was kind of the two worlds that have naturally merged. And I grew up as a dancer. So in this space, I feel like I've kind of evolved all three areas. However, I don't even say dancer. I like to use the language of performer, to be honest with you, because I feel like dance is one form of communication or execution of entertainment, so to speak. But I have been in the acting spaces. I have trained in singing. I just don't necessarily like sell myself as a vocal coach, but I understand the evolution of like multitudes of the performance world. So I think it was interesting because it's a twofold. Again, I'm a huge believer that dance is a form of therapy. I think there's actually stats that show that all the different forms of therapy of how you can like address your personal needs and your mental health, that dance actually like supersedes everything else in terms of how it actually helps heal you quickly and how therapeutic it is. And I'm a very big believer in trying to dismantle this like unspoken taboo that men being in those spaces is seen as like a feminine trait in a negative way, instead of seeing it as an empowering space, especially because I've gotten so heavily involved in understanding and appreciating the craft of ballroom and Latin dancing and partner work as a whole. You really come to understand how like that side of dance, like the Latin ballroom side, is truly like it's spearheaded by men. Like it is a man's dance
Yeah.
floor. Woman only looks amazing because the man knows how to lead her. Like it really is that. And I think that it's not talked about enough. It's always, oh, the woman's amazing. Oh, the woman's so great. It's feminine. And the man's just kind of like support. But like, even you cross compare it to spiritual work, because I've done a lot of spiritual journey work, I'm going to say, in my space, and just like meditations and like diving deeper into like the self in that way. I agree with you wholeheartedly. The feminine and masculine has to be balanced, and everyone has a perfect balance. And even in relationships, that's the yin and yang of a good relationship, is knowing that you both support each other, and that both parties, even though one is maybe seen as a gender wise man and a woman is seen as the gender wise woman, like the woman will still carry dominant qualities that naturally transpire into what a masculine energy is, just as much as she is feminine. And the same thing for the man, like they have both. So it's like, you actually, when you match really well as a couple, it comes down to how you guys lock in to like know how to complement each other's feminine. So like when the man needs to have his feminine energy out, the lady can show up dominantly in her masculine. And then again, like when he's masculine, she fits nicely as the feminine. So it's like learning how to like your personality clicks, because that's so sublayered. And so I feel like dance is a really great way to almost like, not in a bad way, but like exploit some of that and then figure out how you guys have to complement each other. And I see it a lot on the dance floor. It's like this unspoken communication. It's not the day-to-day chat, but it's how your body language works and how you work as a team, especially with wedding couples, right? It's learning that the woman has to get comfortable with following, even though she indirectly leads a lot, because men do enjoy having that support from a partner or a woman to be able to like lead them. So even though the man is like, traditionally seen as the head of the house, or he operates a certain like degree of leadership, he's only as good of a leader as he's supported by his partner. So it's like understanding how to support each other on the dance floor, that like every man is empowered differently on how to like take a new skill on and how to be willing to be vulnerable in that space, especially something like a dance floor. And then how a woman has to show up to support and create a safe space for him to learn, and then also learn with him and not try to overstep and lead and take control. So it's a beautiful science of watching how people evolve together, and how you can see from an outsider as a teacher where some of their areas of opportunity to grow exist because they're so in it. So I enjoy the process because I feel like it's almost like you're working with like constant problem solving, but not in a negative way. It's like you're seeing a challenge and you're figuring out the solution to help them get to that solution, whether that be as simple as like learning a box step, to how they're communicating, to how they're changing their perspective on the time that they spend together on the dance floor as not another task, but as an opportunity to just connect.
Yeah, that just as an opportunity to just connect, I feel like has a lot to unpack there. Uh,
Yeah.
there's on the leadership aspect, there's I feel like that kind of brings it together in terms of how the man leads, and I tell my fiance this all the time. Like, you have such a superpower over me. The word manipulation, I treat it as a very neutral thing. It just means change. You can manipulate your own emotions. You can manipulate other people's emotions, and it doesn't have to be in a negative way. It could actually be in a positive way. Like, I tell her, like, you could manipulate me as a woman, and I would have no problem with it. Like, guide me in the direction that you want me to go as a man, because I feel like as men we're built to serve, and I see leadership as service. And when you're serving, when you're leading, you're taking someone where they already want to go, but you're taking the responsibility of getting them there. It's not bossing them around and like telling them where to go and what to do. And that's something that people mix up a lot of times, I feel like. So when women have this power over men where it's like, if you just admire something about a guy, we're so easy to manipulate in that way. It's like, oh, you think I'm strong? Oh yeah, let me carry all the groceries, you know? It's automatically like, oh, let me do the dishes too while I'm at it. You think I'm like, it's just, and we have no problem with that because
You
it's,
feel empowered, you feel supported,
yeah.
you see it in a positive light. You don't see
That's
that
the
toward.
nurture. Exactly what you said in terms of like the woman carrying that responsibility of building a space for the man to lead, and letting him explore his masculine through that.
Yeah.
That was something that came to mind on the leadership aspect, but I want to actually touch on the opportunity to understand each other and explore what you were saying about like how it allows you to pick up on each other's subconscious cues or pings, I like to call them. Whether it's like even when you walk home and you ping your partner for connection, or you ping your partner to be listened to, I feel like that translates very well to your home life balance as also, because if you're able to read each other's cues, it's the sign of a healthy relationship. It's where you, because if for example you become triggered at the same time and you're not able to pick up on each other's cues, that maybe let me listen to this person because I can tell they're triggered, and that's the cue that I'm getting. They need to be heard right now instead of me fighting back. uh, those cues are so important, because if you're not able to pick up on those little things, it eventually ends up creating some sort of disconnect, little by little, very tiny bits that takes years to create a significant space. But then years later, like, you end up getting a divorce because it's hard to
It's
fix all
built.
of that.
So like it was like throwing stuff into the trash, but the trash just kept getting
Yeah,
bigger. Never actually unpacked what or took the trash out. You know, it's like you
yeah.
just kind of left it there.
Exactly. So I like that, and correct me if I'm wrong, that kind of seeps into your mission in terms of creating that space for couples to understand each other better, especially intimately. And I haven't yet experienced your events. I haven't had a chance to, which I would love to have planned to. But tell me a little more about like how this process goes and how you combine all these things together.
So the show that I built, the brand is called Invite Only, and I built it this way intentionally with the name because I wanted it to also start the education right from the moment you experience the show, from like the moment you meet it, you know, the same way a first impression is. Yes, it's a very catchy title. People love it because they're like it sounds so like hush hush. But like to a degree, sensuality and intimate spaces are very hush hush and quiet, right? Like they're a sacred space that only two people really get to enjoy, or I should say select few, depending on like what that looks like. But it is meant to still be seen as a very sacred space. And the brand name itself tells it for what it is. You have to be invited to be there because it is very important that we really reiterate the importance of consent on both parties, or all parties, I should always say, because I should be conscious of that. But like in a relationship, like I think there's a lot of just like layers to what society has taught and advertising has taught and what television has insinuated and all the different variations. And it's made us almost have so much information. It's hard to really like slot it down to like what's the right route to go. So when I built the show, it was like, let's come back to like the foundation of what like sensual spaces look like and what relationships and the meaning of intimacy can look like. And that, yes, it is a mature conversation because like there's a point of where you have to wait for your brain to evolve to a certain point and experience enough out of life to be able to
Mm.
enter this type of space without the immaturity. You have to be open and understanding and being able to see it from an artistic but educational lens. So invite only is essentially like, I've described it so many ways. So I'm trying to find the right perfect words to say it on this, but it
Exciting.
was meant to be a space to redefine the meaning. Like, I know a lot of people shy away from this, and I'm actually told sometimes to not say this, and it sucks because like I feel like that's how much it's been misused, the choice of language on this. But it's about redefining what the meaning of adult entertainment is in my mind, and here's why. Adults factually means you get to a certain age, like 21, right? Or 19, depending on whatever city or country you're from. There's different identifications as when you become an adult. The point of using the word adult is to be able to identify that there's a certain maturity level and a certain like emotional intelligence level and a certain degree of years of experience lived to understand that you can now handle this type of discussion or this type of idea. Entertainment as a whole is a very simplistic word. It's to entertain. It's the idea of nightlife. It's the idea of experiences. It's whatever you want to identify as entertainment. That could be film, that could be live, whatever that looks like, right? So when I say the term adult entertainment, it immediately gets attached to like I'm at the sex club or I'm in like a brothel or I'm in like, you know what I mean? Like it's the extreme. And it's been extreme because it's been exploited that way for a long time. That's the only time it's been used, which is unfortunate because like it's left no middle ground for anything. It's like you're either like playing PG-13, you're very safe in the world and you just play safe, or like you're on the other extreme weird end and there's just like no middle. But then like I kind of joke back to the whole idea of like movies like 50 Shades of Grey or like the book. And it's like, okay, but relationships are like 50 Shades of Grey. There's so many layers to relationships, and the evolution of how you grow even in a relationship together to like how you get to know yourself is a constant journey throughout your entire life. And who you were 5 years ago to who you are today to who you are 10 years from now is going to look different. And sometimes relationships don't end up lasting because they grow apart, because they get to know themselves more to realize that maybe that person was part of the stop of the journey, but they weren't supposed to, like, they're not the right alignment for the end. But anyways, all this to say, the point of the show is that I wanted to create a space where you could come in and basically like dabble in the unknown space of like, what does that look like if I am curious to know more about either myself or the idea of intimacy with a partner. And I want to create a safe space where both my partner and I feel comfortable to like feel normalized to enjoy a night like this without feeling like I'm committing or over committing to something that I didn't sign up for. So I joke that the show is meant to be like the first shade of gray. I'm like the door to open the door to be like, hey, did you know that like life can look like so many ways? But I don't like necessarily take you to where you want to go. I just leave it open-ended enough that like you have the freedom to take that journey where you want it after I've created the show for you. I used the form of entertainment with show production because I feel like, first of all, from the psychological perspective, I'm a very big believer that like entertainment is one of the most influential, if not the most influential, like thing in the world for people and how they move and how they think and society and how they operate. I mean, down to like what you wear, to where you shop, to where you choose to eat dinner, to like who you associate yourself with, to what you identify as hot or popular, to like what is not. Like all those things have been identified based off entertainment, some form of entertainment that has subliminally or subconsciously influenced your point of view on what is acceptable or what is not. So I am a big believer that when it comes to show production, sometimes you can actually utilize entertainment to your advantage to educate people in a way that doesn't feel so upfront and abrasive, the way like a traditional education system might look. So sitting down and opening a textbook and here's what it all means. It's very like direct. Whereas with entertainment, you can actually be very subtle and you can be very influential in very casual ways. And you don't even realize it because the same way you watch TV and you fall in love with an episode or a character, you don't realize that when you fell in love with the character, you started to pick the same kind of clothing choices, or you started mannerisms operating the same way, or you started to be attracted to the same type of person. Like, right? Like that's where I say it's so subtle and it's like layered and it's subconscious. So I really, because I come from the background of psychology and I understand the mastery of like influence and how you can influence and motivate people. And yes, you can use the word manipulate, but it's also like you can use the word encourage or like steer, right? Like there's, again, it's all, even the choice of language of manipulation in itself is like a sub layer that we've subconsciously taught it's a negative word.
Yeah.
Sort of like understanding that that's just, again, society's educated you that way. That doesn't mean it's factually that word is a negative word, or that choice of, you know what I mean? Like that in itself it could be extrapolated. But bringing it back with the show, what I wanted to create was I got to a point where I realized like, okay, there's a lot out there for the singles market. Like, you know, when you're young and you're like wanting to go party and live your best life and experience all the sick things. And don't get me wrong, like I've gotten to experience a lot of that. So I get it that there's a place for it. But then you get to a point, and I've seen a lot of relationships around me, and relationships evolve into marriages and have children and families. And once you get to that point in life, it almost feels like you hit this peak of understanding you got to like get into the relationship. And then once you have the relationship, it like kind of just goes like flat lines. Like there's not really like much excitement anymore that's happening. You're like busy trying to hold down your job. You're focusing on having kids. You're trying to have a family. You want to have the house. Like it's very pragmatic. But the whole lead up is all exciting, right? That's why you like the like single, because it's all about like, where am I going and how am I going to catch them and where's the flair going to come from? And maybe I'm going to catch that hot guy from across the bar, whatever, or hot girl. So all this to say, like, there's enough out there feeding the lead up. But when you get into the actual relationship, what is feeding that part? And that's where I was like, hold on a second. Yes, we have dinner nights out and there's dinner theaters and there's like theater shows, and like a very traditional route I at least have always understood is when you're in a relationship and you get into that point where you're like 25 plus, you're in like that serious relationship. It's like, okay, so we do dinner and a show, but it's like very like, again, PG. Like there's no playroom. And then if you ever wanted to explore play space with your partner, you're almost kind of like seen as like this weird outside outcast that's like into that stuff, you know, like the way people associate that. And I hated seeing that because I'm like, we're indirectly shaming someone for wanting to seek for more excitement out of life with their partner. But because it's not what the world has taught us is this is acceptable, we are now like seen as like that's shameful, so therefore we're like less likely to explore it. Or you have people who just embrace it and they accept being basically crucified for the direction that they explore. Like it's pretty much what it is. Unless you can find your safe spaces of communities that do normalize it. But even that like comes with layers of building up enough confidence to put yourself out there, to find those people, to get rejected, to find the ones that accept you, because it's never just a simple system, right? So when I built this, it was more like, how do you hit the middle ground? Like, how do you create a space where a couple could be maybe more on the PG side, but they would like to explore reigniting a spark between the two of them? Maybe they've been together for like 10 to 15 years and they feel like it's been dull and they're looking for something to like reignite the excitement again that feels personal and exciting, and only they would know that about each other because that's something they share, but like it's showcased in some sort of show production to allow them to reignite or relive that excitement that maybe they once had. Maybe it's like people who are getting to know each other and they've grown to a certain degree in their intimacy, but they still have so much more to grow together on, and this is a category that is not easy to talk about. It's not like you go home, sit down with your partner and you're like, so what are you into? You want to get into this? Like, you know, it just doesn't come out like that, right? And so the idea was like, let's build a show where we can normalize having this discussion, where we can talk about like what intimacy looks like on multiple layers, and also talking about like how do we ignite a space where like women feel safe to do it, because unfortunately we've spent a lot of time over like the last, I couldn't even tell you, like as long as I've grown up, I've known it to not be a great space. Is like women, it's not normal for women to like embrace their sensuality. It's like they should be hidden behind the bedroom to do that, and only for one person, and anything outside of that they're labeled as like a slut, or they're labeled as like a whore, or all these awful words, right? Or like if they dance at a club, then they therefore are a sex worker. Like they just, it's such extremes. Instead of like us being like, okay, women do have sensual needs and they do want to understand what those are. And some of them really would love to build up the confidence in that space so that they do show up even better for their partner, but there's no place for them to like do that. You know what I mean? Like, where are they learning? Where are they getting educated on? And sometimes even men, where are they getting educated other than like traditional movies to see, okay, like this is how women like to be treated, or, ooh, maybe I should like approach her like this, or like, oh, I didn't take that in, that could actually do really, that's really effective. Again, it's these little mannerisms, pings, body languages, as you'd say it, that there's not really much out there addressing it. It's like the unspoken expectation. You just kind of learn it and you hope for the best that you learned it right. So the reason I had built Invite Only was because I wanted to address all of those big like gaps. And I was like, I really would love to hit a niche where like you can keep the excitement of entertainment and nightlife alive, but with an older crowd that does care about investing in, like, maybe they don't go out every Friday night anymore, but they will go out for that night, that one select night, to enjoy a date night. And it's an opportunity for them to like almost relive their youthful love, or their spark of youthful energy within the love that keeps them excited and curious and out there, that they can go and enjoy that. And it's done in a tasteful enough way that the woman doesn't feel like she's being exploited through it. She does feel represented and she does feel empowered in the space to like enjoy it and get into her like space. But also the man can feel comfortable to like enjoy watching the show, having an opportunity to connect with the partner, be able to talk about how this experience is, and be able to like use that as like basically a new conversation starter to take home and create a new space to talk about intimacy and what that looks like for them. So that was the build of it. I did it based off of women because first and foremost, I can't deny like I am a woman. So it would be ignorant for me to try to speak from a man's lens. Like I can only speak from my own life experiences. And I think any great entertainment or storytelling is done from genuine experiences from yourself. So it came from a female voice because that's what I identify as and that's who I am. And I also wanted to create a safe space to show other women who like know me as a dancer, who know me as a performer. Some would say like, yes, like I put myself out there and I'm confident. How can I share that type of energy and encourage others to experience that and heal them in those spaces? And not just like, yeah, look at me, I'm great. It's like, okay, no, how do I use this skill and help you become a version of this too? You know? So I based it off of females for that reason to like basically reestablish and reignite this like power to say like, let's normalize being comfortable to like embrace all of the curves and essences of who we are. And quite frankly, I would even argue most times like movement, like the sexiest part about women or relationships, and I'll say it because like men and dance floors definitely can have their sex appeal now too, but like it's not even about actually like the nudity or how stripped down you are. It's about your aura and how you take energy and you work energy to your advantage. How eye contact is huge, how like little body mannerisms from like the way you touch your shoulder to like the wink across your eye, like just the little details, that's actually what ignites the entire energy. It's not the take it all off. You know what I mean? Like the tease and the lead up is the most exciting part. So it's like bringing back that part. I used to get teased in high school. Oh gosh, I'm using that word so many times in a sentence, but I used to get made fun of in high school because I was referenced as a tease because I was never someone to like give it up, but I was always very flirty. And like at the time growing up, I felt like that, even though I taught my mind to be like, take it as a compliment because like you still cherish such a sacred space and nobody gets it. And that's why they get annoyed and call you this because like you never give it. I also was like, damn, that still has a negative connotation in it. But like if I gave you what you wanted, I would then be called something else. And like, so it's like you're never winning. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the actual joke is when you really educate yourself on intimacy, the most attractive parts about intimacy, in my opinion, are the mind, it's in the body language, and it's how you're so in tune with somebody else. It is the attraction of, as you said, something as simple as, wow, you're so strong because you're carrying the groceries. Now I want to clean the dishes. But she didn't do anything other than give you a compliment. It's how she said it. It's what she knows you needed to hear. It's how she knows what empowers you in that moment. And it's knowing that person that well, to know what like triggers you're tapping into in a positive way, to be like, this is something that would like basically build up their self-esteem. And as a result, it indirectly makes them feel like that person's sexy. They're attracted to them, right? Again, this is like such, obviously I'm like kind of going off on the tangent, so I apologize. But going into
No.
the show, this is what I keep in mind when I'm creating is like, okay, I have an opportunity to make an influence in the room. I don't only have the opportunity to influence the creatives that I'm working with who are showcasing the entire story. So that journey in itself is like a whole separate journey because I'm working to like figure out, okay, what are their like maybe strengths, but also what are their soft, weaker spots that they're still battling. That could be mental, that could be physical, that could be like these limitations they've set that I'm having to work with them to dismantle and reconfigure and figure out how to rechange the lens to look at it so that they are willing to open a side of themselves in a way that actually helps them grow for the better, which in turn can, I say this and I say this with like a lot of happiness to say, but I've worked with some of the cast members in the past and they came to me one version, right? Like a version of themselves. And some of them have been single when they've come to me. And by the end of the time they worked with me, they're in like their life relationship. Like they attracted their partner. And it was like, but we were working on a show. I wasn't, right? Like I wasn't the therapist. I was a show producer. But because of the journey of the intimate relationship you build with them and how you understand them and how they need to embrace themselves in the story of whatever you're putting out, which means that they have to be willing to be vulnerable and surrender and to get into that space themselves, which means there's a lot of self-reflection. And in turn, you're working with them through the skill of art or dance or show production and entertainment to bring out aspects of who they actually are and figure out how to get them to be comfortable in that version of themselves. And as a result, it also attracts who they end up finding. And then some of them end up like one got engaged after like the show and another one got into like the relationship they're with for a while. A couple of them did. So it's like you actually grew within yourself to attract what you really wanted, and look how happy you are now. And that didn't come from showing up to a therapy session. That came from doing something that didn't seem aligned. But on the other side, so that's like the left side of what I do in terms of working with the creatives. But on the outside, when I'm bringing couples in or I'm bringing guests in, it's like, okay, now I'm working with a creative team to all of us to work together to tell a story about how to educate the rest of the world how to grow comfort in not only who they are, and that they are worthy and they are sexy in just the way they are, and that they can embrace that without wishing they looked like 500 other people, but also how in a relationship it is okay to want to talk about more than just the standard understanding of what intimacy looks like. Because right now, I think a lot of relationships see intimacy as one dimensional. They
Yeah.
don't even understand how to appreciate the simple things like taking a dance class as like a massive investment in how you grow in your intimacy of a relationship, how you keep it alive, because you're building teamwork together, you're learning a new skill together, you're creating a vulnerable space to like grow together, you're learning how to laugh together when you're doing something ridiculous, you're learning how to like fall in love with being in somebody's arms, or being able to trust that somebody's willing to like be fully led by you
Mhm.
because of what you share there. So I think it has so much more than what like the average public understands as just like, oh, it's a dance class, you know? So when it came to shows, I use dance because I say that body language is the one of the only languages in the entire world that's actually universal. We could
Yeah.
be speaking two different languages and raised off of two different cultures, but how we operate in body language, as a smile to how like we move, it still reads a certain way. And in an indirect way, it's very universal, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Mhm.
So when it comes to show production, I just really enjoy building invite only because it was meant to be basically addressing like the burlesque space, the cabaret space, the pole arts that have been like very negatively looked down on over the last few years because it's only directly attached to like, okay, if you do pole dancing, so you work like at a strip club. And it's like, okay, but what about like art on pole that's phenomenal, like actual
Mhm.
skilled artists? The only way people can comprehend that is if they go to a circus, because they're like, oh well, it's a clown or it's an act, like that's the only way they can compartmentalize it. But it's like, okay, I shouldn't have to be a clown, and I shouldn't have to just accept being called like something negative, I'm going to just say in any capacity, to say like I enjoy pole or that pole is beautiful, do you know? So
Yeah.
I take a lot of the taboos and I put it into the show, and I try to refine it so that it's looked at from a different lens, because the brand is about tastefully educating you. It's not meant to feel abrasive. It is very Audrey Hepburn out loud to the outside world, or like Marilyn Monroe with the cheek of the blowing, like you know, like dress up. When you go behind the closed doors and you experience it, it doesn't feel like you're like, oh, like taken so aback. Just enough that it makes you be like, I kind of want to know more,
Yeah.
right? And that's for both parties. And it really is hard to perfectly explain the mastery of how you do that. I think that's the magic of what like you get to carry when you're in that space, you know? But like I can only speak to it, let's say, on simple terms of like eye contact and all that. But I
Yeah.
work on a show that essentially just creates a safe space for everybody. But it feels like you're back to like watching just like like what a Cirque du Soleil show would feel like, but it's immersive. So it breaks the wall. It's not always just stage. It's like it could be right beside you. The dancer could pop up on the bar. There could be the next act that's coming off that like table. It has intention. Everything that's been built has some sort of intention to make it feel inclusive and enwrapped, and it complements the story, but it creates so many layers that people have never experienced, and it lets you get excited again, and it makes you feel like you're alive again, and it takes the excitement into the space of who you're sharing it with. And then as a result, it creates like, it's like as if I set the fire and then I'm like, okay, bye, have a good night, and you go take the flight, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I like that description. I imagine there's a lot of involvement with like the couples amongst like the show. Like,
So the show
how does that
itself,
work?
because I haven't actually dived much into couples into the show, the couples just are like the experiences of the
Mhm.
show, but like they're not the ones curating it. This actually, the show I'm working on right now that's releasing at the end of summer, this will be the first time where I like introduce like true partner work into the show, which I'm really excited about, because it's like bringing it to that next level. Because I would love to actually bring men into the show so that it doesn't feel like it's only a women's only show. It's led by women, and it's definitely meant to empower women and to redefine a space where like, you know, men have traditionally maybe put women in that space. I don't want to say like it's therefore we're ex-naying relationships. It's like, no, let's use this as an opportunity to create a new norm of education on how we interact, you know? And so I do look forward to having this journey with like the couples in this space, but for the relationships that actually experience the show, I feel like they play a big part in the decisions I'm making in terms of what do I want to be talking to them about? What do I actually want to be planting in their mind? And if I'm being careless with like my song choices to how the routines are done, or I'm just doing something because it's hot instead of being like, no, I'm doing this because it's going to encourage certain things to exist, whether that be confidence, empowerment, taking lead, whatever that actual task I'm trying to implement, then it actually helps influence them. And that directs the direction of how I tell the show. I always keep in mind like who's the audience I'm pulling for, and what do I want them to take from this, or how do I want them to feel after this, and if there was something they were going to leave with, like every little decision I make should influence that, you know?
Yeah, I get that. How do you, when you talk about like getting them to open up energetically, how do you teach people to show up for themselves ultimately and be vulnerable?
I feel like it's not like there's not like a one answer to that. I think a huge responsibility I have in that space is you have to be so perceptive the same way you are in a relationship, right? Like you just said it yourself perfectly. Like you and your fiance, she knows how to like encourage you to do things without indirectly telling you to do it, but she like knows how to indirectly guide you. But that's because she's invested so much time to be perceptive to who you
Right.
are, what you need, what taps in the best of you, what actually like dismantles you, what moments have happened in your life that she shared with you or that you've shared with her that she knows have impacted the way you feel or how you show up. It's like mastering the study of a human that helps you influence how to best show up to encourage them to show up better. So when I'm working with different cast or like performers or anyone, and I can say that because it can be transfigured into like even just the dance floor with couples or an individual. It all comes down to like how attentive are you of the person you're dealing with, and how perceptive are you to all of their highs and lows, and what's triggering that. Because once you're perceptive, then you can actually master how to best communicate, what types of activities I might ask you to do, how you go about handling certain things, what homework I give you. Like I'll do it like as if it's in school, because I will say things like, okay, your homework this week is this, right? But like, it's not homework that you have to sit down and do a whole, like, okay, read a textbook and then write your answers, right? But like, I'll ask you, like, let's say if I'm working with someone, um, I might say to them, like, okay, this week, like, I want you to go home and I want you to like write 5 affirmations for yourself. The 5 affirmations are going to be opposites of everything you're scared of. So the things that actually you hate, like you hate saying out loud the most, or the things that you're afraid you're never going to be or are who you are, I want you to flip the affirmation. And now this week, when you write those out, I want you to start telling yourself every morning in the mirror those affirmations. It's such a simplistic concept, but that's also very individualized depending on the person and what they need to hear to themselves. And then forcing them to do something like that can be very emotional, because maybe they can't look at themselves in the eye when they say it. But as they get comfortable with growing that comfort to say that to themselves, it actually indirectly builds up their confidence to show up differently, which in turn will make them attract somebody if they want someone in their life, right? So like, that's just a simple example. A lot of times when it comes to performers, I've really worked with alter egos as like a way to like conceptualize the change. I say it because although I am a believer that we all are like kind of like our personalities are multidimensional. It's like when I'm really angry, I am totally a different version of me versus when I'm like very in my sultry bag. Like there's just like, it's like a sliver of the pie. Like we do have multiple personalities within our personality, right? But what sometimes I'll say to people is, because the sensual space and intimacy is so foreign to so many people and taboo, and they don't even know how to like start, so it just feels overwhelming. It's just more about me taking like the journey with them to say, hey, what if we don't personalize this idea? Let's just talk about it like it's a separate person, like this separate individual. So like, I'll give myself as an example to like explain this. So I grew up in a very Catholic upbringing, and it was very driven, and relationships and sex was just, the answer was no. Like you just don't do it unless you're like married, right? And everything in between, there was no room to talk about. It was just a hard like yes or no. So when I, for example, got the opportunity to develop this show, that stripped back a whole layer of me I had to face before I could even start guiding people into that space, right? Like I couldn't help someone else if I wasn't willing to do the work myself.
Right.
So then I had to start dismantling and be like, okay, Steph, you've like really shamed yourself in a lot of ways. You've always been like, you're a curvy girl, but like indirectly, you've been shamed by family a lot for that. Oh, you're like, cover yourself up. Why are your curves showing? You could lose weight, this and that. Like, you really get to know everything, right? So I had to start by being like, okay, if I had nobody else in the world and I was just like able to go flutter by myself, and maybe it's not me, but somebody else, like if I could be someone else for 1 minute, right? What would they look like? Who would inspire that? What characters or people in my life or like icons in the world that I've been educated on have influenced what I think sexy looks like? And what I think like sultry looks like and what I would want to embrace and why. And that goes again, so many layers. You could be like, okay, I like this person's intellect. I like this person's drive. I was really attracted to this woman's curves. I love her fashion. Like it could be so many things. But I started to build it that way and then be like, okay, so this is a character now. And she has all these things. So if I'm a performer and I'm good at performing, and my job is to be able to become a chameleon of anything, right?
Yeah.
How do I take on the task of becoming the chameleon of the character I just built? And then over time, when I started to jump into that character, okay, well, I'm not Steph. I'm my alter ego is called Amaya Fox. Okay. So like I'm not Steph, I'm Amaya. So what would Amaya do in this situation? I'm on stage and Amaya has to go approach this man. Steph would never approach him because she's too scared. But if Amaya did it, what would Amaya do? And I started to play into that every time. And I'd start to just learn to exercise that when I was doing it in dancing. But then what you don't realize indirectly is over time, as you're flexing these exercising muscles to like become this other character, eventually you grow comfort in understanding this version of the character of who you are playing. And eventually you take ownership and you start to realize that actually is a piece of you. And that is okay because that character you've grown comfort in getting to know. So now you can comfortably own her. Does that make sense so far?
Yeah. I love that.
So I'll work through that layer with other characters, other artists. So I'm able to say like, okay, what your version of sexy looks like and my version are two different things. Okay. And that's okay because everybody's allowed to have a different sexy. I'm a big believer. Everybody has their own like niche, like we all have it. It's like, so
Sexy.
somebody out there is going to find you sexy and that person is not going to want me because they're going to want you. Do you know what I mean? And that's good. That's part of embracing that you're worthy, that you are worthy of that relationship and that you are worthy of exploring that and that someone does want to share that with you. But by educating somebody to grow that comfort in themselves, that's like step one of what I believe is like the emotional intimacy that you then eventually can build and pour into in a relationship. Because if you know how to like basically take care of yourself and build yourself to be who you ideally want to be, when you find that other partner, now it's about you two learning about each other's needs and how you show up at your best, and then how you guys complement each other to bring out the best in each other. Sometimes when relationships get into it, the problem is they know each other so damn well that they forget about how to like bring out the best and they focus on the things that dismantle the person that they know the back,
Yeah,
like the best of their hands,
yeah.
right? Whether that be like, wow, you didn't clean the dishes again today and I've asked you 10 times. Or like, wow, like, yeah, let me guess, you forgot. Or like, of course you're not good with money. It's these, but if you took the same energy and you just shifted it into the positive, you would actually bring out the best in your relationship. And the person in return would mirror the same energy back to you, which is going to bring out the best of you in life, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of like how I guess like you'd say like I use show production as like basically a tool or a mechanism to facilitate education in not only just the individual, but how to normalize some of the things we can't talk about that people are not normally openly receptive to. And it takes a lot for somebody to trust. And sometimes I do recognize even like, that yes, whether it be my skill or the way I look, that I am able to have the ability to gain somebody's trust because they're like, okay, well, it seems like she's got it all together, right? So they're more likely to allow me to influence them. But now understanding that, I understand what that responsibility looks like. So I try to be very intentional about what I'm using then that opportunity to educate on, to be like, okay, let's explore something you don't like talking about, but let's actually talk about it because maybe I can communicate it in a way that will allow you to like your palate will digest this and you'll be more receptive to being open-minded versus like your grandmother telling you that. You know what I mean? Or your boss. It's being smart. And that's where I say, going back to how do you help people kind of get into the spaces you need them to? it really is the mastery of psychology. It's knowing how to work with the human mind and how to optimize on your awareness of what a person, an individual, or a crowd is like. That's why hosts do such a great job hosting when they're good, because they know how to read a room, right? Like they
Mhm.
can tell. They're not, it's something you can't explain. It's an energy, it's a perception. It's like turning on your
Yeah.
tingly senses of being like, okay, like I'm here to service you. So like what am I catching? Okay, the room's not laughing. Perfect. I'll change it like this. Okay, we'll try it like this. Oh, I got it. Perfect. We're staying right here. Like, you know,
Yeah.
the same skill transferred into a different topic.
That's it seems like one of those, I don't want to say jobs because it's like so you're so passionate about it. It's more of like a purpose. But it seems one of those fields or niches where you have a lot of responsibility on your shoulder and you have to grow as a person to take on a brand new challenge each time the show comes on. It's like I can imagine that could be nerve-wracking and stressful to but you get better at becoming comfortable with that uncertainty as a person. So I can imagine there's a lot of growth.
I love that you like nailed that on the head because that's exactly how I felt. Like the last time I did this show and the whole show run, like I built the brand in 2023. It ran for the summer of 2023, and the show was called The Essence of a Woman. And I picked it that way because I said like I can't even get into like the details of like chapters of topics I want to hit yet until like I get pretty much the most simplistic foundation of what the show is going to be about, which is why I picked The Essence of a Woman, because I wanted to like change the lens of like when women are sexy, let's look at it from a spiritual perspective. Like it's so
Mm,
majestic, it's like beautiful, it's like
yeah.
jaw dropping because it's like energetically it's incomparable, you know. But I had to focus on just such a simplistic concept instead of getting into every little detail of like, so now what does this look like and then what does this look like. But I did that on purpose on show one because I said I want to like just like use this as the platform so that like every time I produce a different show, it tells a different story, it has a different end message, but it always ties back to like still a foundation of a woman being majestic and beautiful and being able to be embraced in that space. And that doesn't just mean only women are that, but of course, again, I'm always going to be honored that I'm speaking from the space of what I know. And that's that I want women to embrace that more because I haven't gotten them to like, I haven't seen that done enough. And I think that that is a huge pocket of what could actually amplify relationships and actually help a man step into his energy even more because the woman does indirectly lead. So if she's
Mm,
very in her energy and she's unapologetic about it, it indirectly transfers to the person she's sharing energy with that's going to want to come out in that space too. So like, yeah, that was the idea of show one. Now it's funny you say the like weight and the growth requirements that are involved because last year I didn't produce any shows. It was like really looking at the lens of like what's the brand about and how do you want it to be read, down to like the website, how the social looks, to the future of how the language would be used, to every single type of communication form off this brand. Like, what does that look like? And that was very overwhelming in all honesty. I think, like, especially when you're looking at the intention of building a brand that you hope leaves a legacy so that, like, it goes on past when you're alive. Like, you want this to take its own life, you know? It's like you're having to foresee things 30 years from now. It's very, it can get overwhelming. And then in the same time, you're also trying to grow as an individual to figure out what message you want to say next, right? Like, what's the next thing you actually want to communicate to the world and educate them on when you're going to do the next show? And so you're absolutely right with this being the first show that I'm bringing back since 2023. And it's because I've had to wait and grow and face and experience life. It has felt a lot because you're almost impatient as a creative that you want to like get to the next thing. Let's go, let's create again. But then you also forget that part of being able to create really effectively is that you have to create space to pour in. And the same thing with relationships. You can't give advice the same way if you don't experience things to understand and kind of go through life to get it and see enough. And it doesn't always mean that you have to have direct like experience with it. Like it didn't have to happen to
right.
you, but you had to at least be open to like receive the information to educate yourself and reflect on someone else's learning, for example, to be like, you know what, in retrospect, seeing that, like, I can see why that went wrong. You know what, if this had been just the slightest shift, I bet you that would have changed things. So it's just like, it's a constant growth. And I think that's the beauty of it. And it kind of teaches you that, like, especially with show production and what I'm doing with the brand, is like, there's never going to really be a cap. It's always going to evolve. And there's always going to be something new to talk about. And there's always going to be a new layer. And there's so much of it. I think the nicest part about when you get clear on your mission, I feel like I've become very clear to understand that I enjoy helping others heal, to fall in love with themselves and not wish they were somebody else or wish that they looked different. I really want to teach people how to grow comfort in exactly who they are and trust that they were given everything they were given because it was exactly perfect for them and that they are enough. And in turn, by helping build up their confidence in that space, they can grow enough openness to not only offer space to help someone else flourish, which in many ways is what relationships do, but it also allows them to explore safely and not feel afraid to take leadership in different ways when they want to explore those things, and that it doesn't have to look one dimensional, and that there is somebody out there that will bite to it with them. You know what I mean? That will want to take that journey with them. So I enjoy the process. I really am a strong believer that for some reason, dance and entertainment is what I was gifted to work with in order to like facilitate the communication that I need to give. And I feel like it is such a great way to do it because it's so digestible and it allows people to indirectly, subconsciously be influenced by it and be open to grow without even knowing that they are. And I like that because people don't like to be told what to do. They like to feel like they made the choice themselves. So, the same way a woman may indirectly encourage her man to do the groceries, as you said, or the chores, people like to feel like it was their idea to choose to get there, but they need a little bit of a holding hand to say, like, I'll take you there so you feel comfortable to decide.
Yeah. There's this really interesting video I saw recently of how partners communicate with each other, and there will be points like within that conversation where one of the partners turns into, like, when it's their turn to speak, they turn into a kid and it's the kid speaking, and then the other partner stays an adult and responds like an adult. The other part, and then the one that was a kid turns into an adult, and the one that was an adult turns into. So at different points, I feel like that inner child comes out and offering that safe space for people to know that, like, just since we're on that topic of like leading, I don't have to do this thing, because if I felt like I had to do it, I would just feel more resistant to doing it. But knowing that like it's okay, and there's nothing wrong with just, if I don't feel like it, I don't have to do it. Then it makes me want to do it. For example, like part of
Yeah.
the influence and the leading that the woman does it for the man, and it applies differently for the man giving a woman that safe space to be vulnerable and channel her emotions. I really like how you're attacking this narrative in society of how women and men communicate, and how like what's been built has brought us in the wrong direction, in terms of our relationship, like as men and women, especially when it comes to intimacy, because there is a misconception. I mean, there might be some level of truth to it, like as men, like when the narrative is that men objectify women, there is some truth to like seeing a woman and finding her attractive. But when it comes to intimacy and a man being turned on, for example, there's so much of it that's mental that people don't take into account for, just because of like how the image we've built of each other, or for example how women are treated. You talked about education and teaching each other how to treat each other outside of the relationship, even like that women will be approached by a man that can't pick up on these little signals or like the sub communications from her body language, and then he doesn't get the cues to leave, or give her some sort of safety that she's asking him for, that she can't directly say. And so
Yeah.
she ends up being pushed and feeling uncomfortable and pressured, and either leaves or says something that makes him feel angry or resentful. And then they both leave off having this story about each other. And then the story of society builds on through that, through people just misunderstanding each other. So I'm totally on that same mission of changing the collective narrative that women and men have of each other, because we've built like stigmas around all the wrong things. And also like to push how building your emotional intelligence and learning how to stimulate each other's imagination is really where that attraction is built. Like you said, it's more mental, how teasing and flirting and that dance of playful energy, and not just giving somebody what they want, or having sex with someone. It's that in itself is not the attractive part. It's the adventure that you are on that is displayed in this form of body language dance or verbal dance that the two of you are sharing. And that's also like how I teach
Excitement of
people
like
to go about it.
the soul connection. That's the actual excitement. It's like not the physical activity, it's the connection with someone's soul where you like, when people say like I don't know how to explain it, it just feels different.
Yeah.
People say that. It's like That's the part that's exciting.
Yeah. It's the connection, it's the challenge of like exploring this new thing, it's the novelty of it. It's there's so much at play that goes into that connection, that builds the actual attraction that's completely outside of the physical. So I love what you're doing. Something that I would want you to leave people with in regards to getting into this new narrative is, how can either single people or couples, how can people start exploring this intimacy and open
Come
themselves
to
up
my
to it?
show. That's my perfect plug. Um, I would say
Like where do they start before even getting to the show, like in terms of having this conversation or to support each other on that journey?
such a good question. There's so many places I would start. I would tell you to start on the dance floor because it
Mhm.
just is like the inevitable of like the energy exchange and also the body language change. So I would always say, like, for those who are in a relationship who feel like things have been dull, I think it's like honoring that and being able to communicate. I think normalizing communication in relationships really needs to be done on both sides, because I feel like
Mhm.
men's stigma around a lot of like how they've treated women or mistreated women has come from like a lack of awareness or a lack of
Yeah.
knowledge or safe spaces to communicate and ask these questions. It's only just been passed down whatever they've seen growing up to like whatever they've seen as acceptable is kind of what's influenced them versus like somebody sitting them down to talk to them about it. I would say if you're a parent who's looking to like basically make sure the next generation of your children like are like more into this space, then I think like looking at how you want to have a conversation with your children at the age when you're ready to have that conversation with them, to talk about like understanding that it's not just a black and white, and that they don't need to talk to you about all the layers, but educating them that they can find people to talk to about it if it's not them personally. In relationships directly, it's opening the door of communication from a vulnerable, calm place and remembering that nothing's combative, and changing the mindset of like, you're not giving me, to like, we need, like, changing that language of like, you're not giving me what I need, to like, I'd like to explore this area more together, so that it's like a safer space to talk about. I think
Mhm.
communication would be the first thing, and choice of communication. Maybe like reading some books and getting to know. There was actually a book I recently read, which like I'm gonna plug somebody when like I should
Oh,
get a
yeah.
sponsorship kickback for this. But the Eight Rules of Love book by Jay Shetty is a really great book because whether you're single or you're in a relationship, I found it really helpful, and I'm not in a relationship currently. So I think it's very helpful for both lenses to be able to see like how you grow and what that looks like, and like the different chapters and how it talks about like when breakups exist and why breakups really exist, and when you decide to pour in and how to keep the spark alive. Like I think he did a really great job of, again, digestibly like talking about things that allow people to like kind of start that journey. And then I think it's about being able to like honor yourself and working on figuring out ways, whether that be activities or finding the circle of friends that will help encourage this piece of you, or trying something new and like putting yourself out there somewhere that you haven't been, like a dance floor, let's say, because some people don't use the dance floor like that, to just start honoring the journey of learning what your sensual space is and what that is for yourself first before you maybe bring it to your partner, so that you know how to like actually articulate that because you've done a bit of self discovery. I think that you can't really pour things into relationships until you do the self discovery. So even if you're in a relationship and you are looking to like advance that area of your life, you're yearning for more fulfillment in like an intimate space with your partner. I think the first place you got to start is like with the mirror of yourself. Not that your partner needs to fulfill something for you, but like, what is it within yourself that you need to work on to fulfill within you? And then how can that complement with the partner you're bringing into the picture? Because your partner is supposed to complement or enhance something you already have, not that they're supposed to fill the void for it, because that's where dependency begins. Because
Mm.
you don't know how to enjoy things yourself, you're depending on someone else to make you happy. And I've been guilty of it too.
Yeah.
I've gotten into relationships and gotten into the dependency side and didn't even realize it, because you poured so much into the relationship that you actually lost yourself in the journey. It's like you do have to have the delicate balance. It's very important to keep a level of independence within yourself, because as an individual, what made you attractive in the first place in a relationship is who you were by yourself. So if you lose that version of yourself while you're in the relationship, that's where sometimes you lose the love or the spark, or the person's not as attracted to you because they're not seeing that version of you anymore. So there is a level of personal responsibility to pour into yourself and take time to journal, and to take time to maybe watch a show that you're curious about, or honor your curiosities, because sometimes curiosities also will serve you in, whether it be to reaffirm that this is the right direction to go, or to be like, okay, I'm glad I checked that. The answer is no, but we're good. Glad I explored. So like And it's perspective of giving space to also be okay with making mistakes and not making it such a big deal. You know what I mean? Like not shaming yourself so aggressively
Yeah.
for whatever you want to explore, but being like, it's okay. It's okay to make a mistake, but also like understand the consequences to the decisions you make, engage it, you know? So I would definitely not say like, don't talk to your partner about it, but start with like your own journey of understanding what it is you need. And when you feel like there comes a point where you got to communicate that because it could affect the relationship, if you don't have it, the partner involved, where you got to create a safe space to talk about it. Like, hey, I want this to work with you. I built this relationship with you because I believe in it. Here's where I feel like I'm stumped or like I'm looking for more like energy in this area and I don't know how to get there, and I'm hoping by talking to you about it and maybe making suggestions, we can open a door to work together to find the solution versus like I need you to come to the table and have a solution to the problem that I have because this is a problem. That's usually what it goes like, right? So, but I think first and foremost, it always comes back to like look at yourself in the mirror and figure out you, because it's so easy to point out like the boulder in someone else's eyes while you
Yeah.
have your own.
Yeah. I love
Yeah.
that. Where can people find you?
Okay, so I have a social media. That's obviously the first place most people use these days. So it's at Stefanie Eby, Stefanieby is how you spell that. If you ever want to get to know my brand and the show that I work with, it is called Invite Only. You can find it pretty well under any type of at tag that says Invite Only XO. It's like a hug and a kiss, a little sign off. So at Invite Only XO, we have a website, inviteonlyxo.com. So that's where you can get to know the spaces for the show production. But if you want to get to know me, my company, I do work like the overarching company that I own is called EB Entertainment. So it's literally my last name, EBY, and then entertainment.com. And again, social media wise, you can find EB Entertainment at EB Entertainment or the invite only, as I said, XO or my name. That is literally how you'll probably be able to get a hold of me.
I love it. And that's Stephanie with an F, not a
Yeah.
PH.
Stephanie with an F, just the way it sounds. Stephanie.
Yeah. That's how it's meant to to be spelled.
Exactly. Kept it
Um,
nice and simple.
I love it. Thank you for joining, Stephanie. It was really awesome to hear your perspective. Kind of something new for me that I didn't really know existed, and I think for a lot of other people too. That this like conversation is being brought up, and it's being and the space is being created to explore the space overall. So I appreciate like the work you're doing, the mission you're on. We share commonalities on that in different ways. And thank you for joining in.
Thank you. And thank you for having me. It's been such a pleasure. And I'm really enjoying that you've created this podcast and that you're just like on the journey again yourself. I feel like
Yeah.
it's not often I've gotten to meet a dating coach. So I really love that I'm glad I unexpectedly fell into a lap with you on that situation, because it just goes to say that like when you're energetically operating at that certain
Yeah.
vibration. I mean, we met each other literally in Nashville on the street on Broadway, like total
On the
fluke,
street.
right? So it's
Yeah.
like that just goes to say how like serendipitous life can be for situations. And I'm just looking forward to seeing how this podcast continues to roll out. Thank you for hosting me.
Yeah.
And hopefully I'll get to be on again soon.
Absolutely. I would love that. From like, no way, we should do a podcast to like random street conversation to podcast episode. It's really awesome how that turned out. Um,
Exactly.
I really enjoyed this, and thank you for coming on. I'm sure we'll do more in the future, and I'm excited for it.
Me
Just
too.
getting started.
Thank you so much. We'll have a wonderful rest of the day, and I look forward to seeing what comes next.
Absolutely. You too. I'll talk to you soon.
Bye.